Till a 60-years-old Japanese truck driver found out he was accidentally switched at birth in 1953 at San Ikukai Hospital in Tokyo. His biological parents are rich family and the infant who took his place grew up to be the head of a real estate company. Meanwhile he was raised by a poor single mother. Damn, that's really shitty. When I was a kid I felt that I must had been switched at birth. The reason for this is that my 5 siblings all have a strong resemblance to each other and to my relatives, but I don't resemble any of them to the extent that acquaintances often remarked about that. Then one day I came across a picture of my great-grandfather and he appeared to be the spitting image of me. Hallelujah, that's basically the plot of many Bollywood movies from the 80s. The truck driver said, I wished I could turn the clock back. When I learned about my real parents 2 years ago, I thought, oh, how I wish they had raised me. Still, Lucy Kraft, a reporter of this story, said, the truck driver says he feels grateful to both the family that raised him and to his birth parents, and he also says he feels no enmity or resentment or bitterness toward the boy who switched places with him. He said they're both victims in this. He can't be angry at him. The story has also reignited the nature vs. nurture debate, with, as Lucy pointed out, many people saying that this is proof positive that it doesn't matter what your background is, nature cannot overcome nurture, and people who are born into poverty are doomed to stay there. This is like the monkey's paw case of wishing that my parents are secretly super rich. I can only imagine processing the TIFU when you turn around and realize you don't know which baby is which, and in a pre-DNA test era, there may be no way to figure it out. Let me see, you could do blood typing, and there's a chance it could say for sure which baby isn't the child of which couple. But then again, it might not. You'd have to tell your supervisor, the parents would probably find out, it would be hugely bad for everyone, and, again, the blood types may not be a combo that tells which baby is which in the end. You know what, this baby is theirs, that one is theirs. Yep, there was never any question. Born on third base, then traded to the Mets, this was a case study in an introductory law module. Thank fuck my poor single mother raised me right, otherwise I could have ended up working in real estate. There was a case a few years ago about babies switched at birth. But after I think 4 or 5 years, the mistake was discovered. Then the real horror started as 2 families basically told their 4-year-olds, okay, well, go to your real mommy and daddy now, and had to deal with swapping kids they raised from birth, well, almost birth, through toddlerhood, spending all their love and care for. I mean, at that point, I'd just rather keep the kid I'd been raising. WTF. Yup, those little ankle tags can slip right off those bendy ankles. It kind of emphasizes the point how a lot of rich and successful people can be boiled down to the environment they are surrounded with. A son of a poor family can end up being a successful businessman just as easily as a successful businessman's child can end up being a truck driver. So much of it has to do with what you're given access to, and so much of that depends on what type of environment you're born into. People love to sit and think that anyone can be anything, and that hard work and sacrifice are the true drivers to success, but the reality seems to be a lot of it is determined before you even exit the womb. I like how nobody seems to give a fuck about the poor single mother whose kid was taken, or her kid, but instead are focused on how horrible it must have been for the boy who was supposed to grow up rich. Edit, just look at the comments under this one. Proof. I want to make a joke about this, but fucking hell, that's just really sad. Looks like Murakami has the idea for his next book. R/fucky win particular. Hope he's entitled to some inheritance or something. That wouldn't happen in the US. Poor people can't afford to give birth in rich people hospitals. The parents should have marked the baby secretly in a kind of a mark that only the parents could recognize and no baby snatcher could ever copy. Capitalism is no meritocracy, folks. Even if the truck driver was smarter and worked harder, being born into wealth would have made it infinitely easier to climb the ranks. Nature vs. nurture? Not just money. Tragic. It's nice that the brothers have connected. Reminds me of the mixed up brothers of Bogota, https://www, New York Times. com/2015/07/12/magazine/ The Mixed Up Brothers of Bogota, AMP. HTML. After a hospital error, two pairs of Colombian identical twins were raised as two pairs of fraternal twins. This is the story of how they found one another and of what happened next. I've worked in education in Japan for quite a while and have had the privilege to work with kids from a variety of socio-economic conditions, and it is clear the effect money has on success. It's not that kids from higher and lower economic strata were necessarily taught different values. The fundamentals were the same. Try to be a good person. Do your best, but the priorities, focus, behaviors and potential for opportunity as well as sense of self-worth could be drastically different. Kids from a school where families were blue-collar manual laborers were less likely to understand and therefore follow societal niceties, which makes them be perceived as lower class, and in Japan those perceptions are more likely to affect your future from earlier on than in America. But also, while students from lower economic groups are encouraged to study, their life priorities will be varied as well. If you as a middle schooler have to take care of the household chores and prepare dinner because your parent is working a double shift and you're also taking care of your siblings, how are you supposed to study as effectively as your wealthier peers? I remember the biggest shock being 7th graders talking about their dreams. Students in Japan have to do a work experience for a couple of days during their middle school careers. During this time they would have a homeroom or two where they would think about what they want to do in the future. At my wealthier schools you would see things like doctor, attorney, scientist, upper management. The students from the poorer school had things like truck driver, gas station attendant, store clerk. Not that those are jobs that anyone should be ashamed to have, but that their understanding of their own potential was stifled by the reality of the practicality of work. Work isn't to fulfill you as a person but to be able to afford the necessities of life. To have a career fueled by passion is not within my abilities, so at least I can pay the rent. I recall that heartbreaking realization more often than I should. But it goes to show that sometimes the field just isn't level and those inequities can passively permeate the minds of the next generation. Honestly, if I discovered this happened to me, I'd just be done with life. What's also scary? This month it was revealed that two Russian mothers, both named Ludmila, had been sent home with the wrong babies after they gave birth minutes apart. The baby girls were returned to the correct parents by the hospital 102 days later, but only after the women paid for their own DNA tests to prove the error. Imagine you care 3 months for a baby and are sure it is yours. Try to bond with it. And then you find out it's not. And you get them switched back. All 4 of the wealthy brothers, including the man who was raised in his place, have reportedly bonded with their lost sibling. Not all bad then. Baby switching is actually pretty common. Wow, Salman Rushdie's book Midnight's Children had that same plot. I wish there was a way to ethically do this sort of study on baby switching. It would take a hell of a long time, but I bet it would blow people's minds how important upbringing and having the right parents, and dollar matters. There are so many people born on third base and thought they hit a triple. Wow, at the hospital where my kids were born, we had electronic bracelets matching parents to kids. There were all sorts of other safeguards involved too, but aside from that, when my kids were born I knew their faces after less than a minute. I can picture their baby faces to this day. The hospital was also extremely strict about visitors and who could and couldn't see the babies, etc. Probably more CYA than anything.